one of my favorite A Flock of Seagulls songs, not one of their more popular ones, although it was a single from the Listen album, 1983. That was Nightmares on TMRS. A Flock of Seagulls formed in 1979 in Liverpool and had such genre-defining hits as Wishing I Had a Photograph of You, Modern Love is Automatic, I Ran, of course, Telecommunications, Space Age Love Song. In fact, on the phone with us right now, even as I say this to you, is lead singer from and songwriter from A Flock of Seagulls, Mike Score. Mike, when you were growing up, were you heavily into music? Was that your major deal in life?
Really, when I was a kid, it was all science fiction.
Really?
Anything, Doctor Who, anything, to do with the stars, because I guess there wasn't really that much on, so it was like really different, I mean, I remember seeing Doctor Who and the Daleks when I was about, 8 or something like that, scaring the hell out of me, but it left a lasting impression. And then after that, there was a couple of movies. Of course, there was only, maybe 2 channels on TV in England that you'd be lucky to get anything about space or science fiction, or aliens or anything like that. So it was all imagination.
That's interesting. So maybe perhaps even the Doctor Who theme might have played a part in the...
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of my... I mean, I didn't know it at the time as a kid, but one of my favorite pieces of music. And even now, when I'm the new Doctor Who, which I watch, they've changed the theme a bit. And I say to myself, why did they change the theme? Why do they have to change things all the time? The original theme was just so atmospheric and so kind of right field, if you know what I mean, for its day.
Sure. Now, what about the usual suspects like Bowie and Kraftwerk and that sort of thing?
Well, I like Space Oddity and stuff like that, and I like Bowie's, his look, which I think had an influence on my look later on, because he looked like a space kind of cowboy kid, whatever, and that's what I wanted to look like. And it got noticed. I think I started to see things like what got people noticed, so I started to do similar things in my own inimitable fashion, of course.
Yeah, well, it's interesting though that I never really figured you for a guy that was a big. Well, I mean, I guess I should have with Space Age Love Song and Telecommunication, that you were a big sci-fi fan. So I got to ask the obvious question then: what about Star Trek?
Yeah, I'm a big Trekkie, always have been. Right, even from the very originals, and I could never understand people that didn't understand it themselves and basically cancel the show. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they had to bring it back because it was kind of an underground thing of people saying, that's what we want. And eventually, with the Next Generation and stuff like that, they... someone up there finally woke the old fogies up and said, this is what is entertaining to people, sci-fi, space. I mean, I guess, in the 15th century before America was discovered, people used to dream of a land beyond the sea. Now we dream of a planet beyond ours,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's all to do with that human element of wanting to explore, wanting to go where no man has gone before.
Well, let me ask you: when you started the band, A Flock of Seagulls, your original goal was to create something as futuristic or alien-like to coincide with your love of science fiction?
Well, I started the band. Really, I was in another band, and that band got signed, but they didn't want to keep me in the band. So a couple of us in that band got kind of dumped out. But by then I kind of realized that the stuff that I was playing, which was more like pop, wasn't really me anyway. I wanted to be more into the Pink Floyd-y sounding, longer songs, more sonic, more moving, really. So something that would get down inside you and you go to bed and it would be spinning around in your head kind of thing. And I think that mixed with the band that I'd been playing in, was doing pop, made me think you can't write a song more than 3 or 4 minutes long, but you still want to maintain some sonic qualities. And then like you say, there's the sci-fi thing as well for the lyrics and stuff like that. And I think just what was going on in the area, or even in the air, brought out, we have to do something that's literally us. Because I remember when I was growing up that every band that I liked had its own sound. And I think that's the worst thing about music these days is that every band sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, but a lot of bands now, I mean, these aren't huge bands. I mean, they're indie rock bands that we play on our station and whatnot, but they harken back to the early new wave sound. And why do you think there's been this resurgence of interest, in this music?
Just because it was an original sound, it has influenced people slowly because, people are slow to accept, right. What I mean? But I think when they keep hearing that stuff on the radio and 30 years later, they go, wow, it still sounds good. And then their kids who are starting in bands and stuff like that, they've heard that from their parents listening to it, as their parents listen to it. So I think that subconsciously there's definitely an influence. And then because once people get into us, they find that we're more diverse than they originally thought. I think they start listening to us even more, but maybe on a more, private level rather than saying, wow, this is a band from the charts, so they must be good,
Right.
So I think it's been a slow process, but I think one day someone's going to stand up and literally hail us as music-changing geniuses from Liverpool.
Well, listen, I have to be honest, when I was growing up, and I was at the right age, when MTV started and all that kind of stuff, and probably the video for Iran would be the first thing I had ever seen from you guys, which at that time, and even still, is such a bizarre video, surrounded by mirrors and cameras twirling and all sorts of stuff. And then, when you get into the albums, there's a whole lot more to appreciate.
Right, and that's what I mean. Once you get past the singles, which the record company put out to make money, basically, and I said once you do get into us a little bit deeper, you see that we're a bit more experimental and a bit more sonic and spacey. Space Age was pretty spacey, but I wouldn't say Wishing was spacey. It's just a real good pop song, And Iran again was just a real good mixture of like American rock and new wave. Right. But sometimes you get into some of the stuff, and it's very electronic, and it could be Kraftwerky, and other stuff could be Roxy Music type stuff, So, and then there's some heavier stuff too. Personally, when I write, I don't write to what I would call a formula. I don't go, my guitars have to be crashing, and drums huge. I kind of start a song and it tells me what it wants, and it could be lightweight drums and pop, or it could be some heavy synth, And I like to let songs write themselves.
Well, that's a great thing, and one of the elements of Wishing that I like is that even though that song obviously is it's got the synth sound, and it is very futuristic sounding. It's a very melancholy song in the classic tradition of, say, a '60s. Broken-hearted pop song, that sort of thing, yeah.
Well, I think the 60s was a big influence on me, because I loved the Beatles, and I loved, one of my favorite songs ever was 2,000 Light Years from Home.
Oh, Rolling Stones, sure.
Absolutely, yeah, and I liked the Stones, basically, but when Brian Jones was in the band...
Absolutely.
That, to me, was the Rolling Stones,
It's just a great song, and I feel like playing it now. But instead, no, we're going to play A Flock of Seagulls with Wishing I Had a Photograph of You, and then we'll come back and we'll chat some more with Mike Schooler, so stay tuned. Just an amazing song. A Flock of Seagulls with Wishing I Had a Photograph of You. Our guest tonight is Mike Schooler. And, after the band ended in 1986 with the Dreams Come True album, you regrouped in the 90s and did some things, but now it seems to be more of a going concern for you, at least with live shows.
It is, and I take it a lot more lightly than I used to as well. When you've been big and it starts to slide down, you get worried and you try and hold it up and stuff like that. But now I actually enjoy it more because it's not so big, and it just keeps rolling along, and I can sit at home and write songs. Not that I put many of them out or even finish recording them, but my favorite part of the whole thing is writing, you know. And we go out, we do quite a few live gigs, and yeah, it's become, it's like a really good hobby that you make a living at, you know, and you still enjoy it. I think if we'd have been big for a couple of years longer, I would have quit music completely, because it's just such a stress, you know.
Well, if you're writing these new songs, but maybe not even recording them, what do you play them for somebody, and then if they enjoy it, you go, okay, well, they're job.
But we play them live. We play
Okay.
a few of them live, and I basically just